Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast Show. I am Lindsay Phillips with Smooth Business Podcasting, and a lot of podcasters, whether they're guesting or hosting, also look for more visibility opportunities with speaking. And so I have with me speaking expert, Krista Martin, and she's the president and founder of Make Your Mark and Talks That Convert. And when I heard her talk with Nancy Jutton, a friend of ours, I knew I had to have her on the show. So welcome to the podcast, Krista.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I know COVID kind of messed us all up a little bit with the whole speaking on stage thing. But I feel like it's coming back. People are going to more events. Like it has taken a while. And so one question I want to ask you is when you say speaking on stage or speaking, do you automatically think like live on stage or do you think of speaking as like holistically?
I'm so glad you asked this up front because people tend to assume one bucket versus the
I
other.
know.
I would say completely holistically, and what we'll talk about today is really how you can leverage, and I call it a talk to,
Mm,
but it's the same thing, but leverage one talk, whether you're doing it virtually, could be a Zoom presentation, a webinar, or in person and live. And I've used the same talk, literally the same talk in those different capacities. And when done well, you can use it across the board. So if you want to stay in your Zoom mullet, which is what I call where you look nice from the waist up and then waist down, you're in comfy pants. You can be, the rock star that's on Zoom all the time, or webinars, or in live in person. Though there's nothing that compares to that and the
yeah.
magic of being in the same space with people.
100%. I was finally at an event in February and I hadn't been to one literally in years. And it was like, oh, that magic in the air and like just the people around you and the presence of someone being on stage. It's just
Oh,
like, I don't know, more magnanimous. Like it's just
yes.
different energy for sure.
That's a perfect word to describe it, one of the reasons I love speaking to grow your business is because that's the fastest way to build trust is when you see someone in person. Video is second, but in person is absolutely first. So when you can do that, because we all know, people buy from people they know, like, and
Yep.
trust. So that you can build that trust so quickly when you're speaking and positioned as an expert, and in front of the right people, they can become clients, very, very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And and when someone is on stage, everyone automatically thinks like, ooh, like
It's
there's somebody. They know their stuff. They're like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? They're the epitome of success in their arena. You just automatically have that thought in your head.
Yes, 100%. It's just instant positioned as a leader, I would say. I used to be in pharmaceutical sales way before starting my
Oh,
business. And I used to think, and I laughed because I'd be in the elevator and there'd be, at a hospital or whatever. Just because I had on a name badge, people assumed I was an expert. Do you know where Dr. So-and-so's office is? And I'm like, I don't know every doctor in the hospital. Of course not.
that's
But I
hilarious.
would try to help them. But it's kind of that perceive. I look at it
Mhm.
as the same thing. Like, I mean, if you have a name badge on and you're standing in front of an audience, watch out. I'm
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah, then people are gonna be like, wow, she's really a superstar. But it's just that elevated experience of you and saying, okay, this is someone that has done the work, is speaking. They're positioned in
Yeah.
everyone's eyes then as a leader and, someone worth listening to.
100%. I have so many questions for you. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know where to start.
No, perfect.
Um, so when you're speaking on stage, I find there are two, it feels like to me, there are two opportunities. Some people let you quote unquote sell from the stage and some don't. And so I find that there may be like a mindset of like, oh, I can only do the ones that are where I can sell from the stage. Like, what do you say about those two scenarios?
And you've already had like two awesome questions, so you're right on target. But what I really teach is an invitation to book a call as the call to action. Anytime it's not, I'd say 30 minutes, or it could be even shorter, but up to 90 minutes. The
Mm,
call to action is, hey, if you're interested, set up a call with me. Because for a lot of reasons. One, a lot of times people get up there and they pitch and they're like, buy this $30,000 thing. And it's like, we haven't built the trust. Or, hey, you get $500 off my $5,000 package. And it's like, that's weird too. So it's like just doesn't fit or feel right. And I found when people say don't pitch from the stage, if I'm willing to say, or I simply share, I tend to, or I'd like to make an offer for 10 no cost strategy sessions, where they get to talk to me or they get to talk to somebody on the team or they get an audit, whatever that is. Would that be okay? Typically groups are very excited and very open to that because
Hmm.
they're like, oh, my people are getting a benefit. They get to talk to Lindsay or they get to talk to Krista if they want to, and it's free. Versus, so it's important to qualify that, I guess, when people say no
Yeah.
from the stage to say, and I just lead with, this is how I typically do it. And groups are very excited about it because that's the truth. And then people are like, oh, okay, if she does it for other groups and they're excited, it isn't a hard sale. Buy my book, pay $30 for the thing. It's simply an easier call to action and invitation that way. And
Yeah.
that's what I recommend. I've also gotten to the point that people are like, all you can do is share your website, or something like that. Personally, where I am in my business, 13 years in, I'd say thank you very much for the opportunity, but no thank you. That's not worth my time.
Mm.
But earlier in my business, I was building my confidence. I was building my credibility. I wanted to just practice the darn talk as many times as I could so I could get all the kinks worked out. And I mean, there's still that visibility of, hey, I'm speaking at such and such. So there's that too, so you do, I
Yeah.
guess, I will backtrack a little in that if it's someone that I really wanted to partner with or was really an industry leader, I would consider doing that just to build that relationship. But I would have to really look at the talk and say, what's the ROI I'm getting out of this? Not to make it totally all about me, but making sure it's a good business decision.
Yeah.
And it may be, oh, it's great ROI to be connected to Lindsay. Okay, great. If that's worth it, then do it. But if it's, hey, this is a smaller group, and it's not worth the time, then to be confident enough to, at that stage to say thank you, but that's just not a right fit. We only do opportunities that allow this or this.
Yeah. I'm
Kind of,
glad you brought that up because a lot of people think, oh, I should be paid to speak on stage. And some do, but I feel like you need to be a certain caliber. But it's like, how do you look at that ROI? And you made a couple of great points, is like just getting in front of that person's audience, or even to
right.
say that you've spoken on
Oh,
stage,
that right there could be worth.
making connections. Yeah.
Yeah, huge, huge. Like if you think of anybody in any industry and you think if, like superstars, and you think if they invited you to talk in front of their people, it could totally shift the trajectory of your business or filling your course or whatever too. So that is something that's really important too. Is I know I've been invited to speak for free in other states or other places, and that's exactly how I would look at it and say, okay, so how many people will be in the room? What is my typical conversion rate? And then I even factor in, okay, what's travel time?
Hmm.
People forget that. What's the cost of travel? All that. And then you say, okay, my costs are X. And is it likely, if you get 5 clients from it, maybe that's $65,000. So maybe that's a
Totally.
worth it. Or maybe you say, well, they're only going to have 15 people. I don't know if they're my right fit people. And it's going to take 3 days out of the office and all that. So you might decide it's not. But just really getting clear on what does positive ROI look like for you is huge. And there's not a right or wrong, but I would say the mistake is when people don't take the time to get clear on what that is.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, it's like I know when I'm at an event and people are on stage, the audience naturally wants to gravitate and at least
Yeah.
meet the person that was on stage, to like rub shoulders, at least be connected, hear more of what they want, what do they do? Like they got a taste of who they are and what they can do for you. And so like you said, knowing who's in the room and are
Yeah.
they the right people? And yeah, like I have lots of clients and they go to events and I'm like, "Ooh, that's pricey." And like traveling, but
Yeah.
they always get a couple of private clients from those events. And I'm like, okay, then that makes it a good ROI.
Yes. And one of the things that I did and really well, I guess I was when I was starting early, and it's kind of a little bit of a mind stretch to play with it this way, but I was like, I want my one of my very smaller goals at the beginning was I want my business to pay to fly me to visit my folks in Missouri. That just felt like, I don't know, I'd made it, I guess. And so I was like, well, I got to have a reason to fly, go there. And so got an offered a unpaid speaking opportunity there. And I said, okay, well, yes, that's great. I mean, it technically is paying for me to go, but then I decided to say, okay, how could I maximize this and make it like a speaking tour? Make it, and so I reached out to other local groups that gathered entrepreneurs or coaches and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. I've got this great talk. Would you be open? Oh, I didn't say I've got this great talk, but would you, I'm going to be in town and I speak on this. Would you be, have openings where I could come in and speak to your audience, or what might that look like? I got three more speaking engagements over two
Ooh,
days. And it was just that follow up and outreach and being okay to do, we were talking about earlier that it could be a group of 15 people or it could be a group of 150. But I was open because I was going to be there anyways.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, that, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to make a ROI turned into, well, I'm in front of now five times as many people
Mhm.
and able to really monetize the opportunity. And there's something magic that, when Lindsay's in Atlanta, we got to all go talk to Lindsay. It's like you're out of town and
That's
you're in
true.
town. So it's like, oh, she's in Atlanta. So we, got to get her while we can. And one of the things, well, I know we'll go in a million directions today, but one of the really cool things that I learned was I used to be on the ICF, the International Coach Federation board here locally. And the speaker had said, hey, I'm going to be in town and, I'd like to do this training, for just the members of the board. And it's all about, I don't know what she was teaching. This was years and years ago. And I was on board and I was like, ooh, so I've just kind of felt extra important because I got an invite that not everybody got. And she did that for free for us. And it was just a couple, I think we had six or seven people, or maybe a few more in that group. And then she gained a couple clients from it. And so what I love about that is thinking small,
Hmm.
created big results for, because she was already in town
Yeah,
for some other speaking gig and she worked with coaches as an ideal client. So she went to a group of coaches
totally.
and said, hey, can I offer value? And especially in a way that's targeted to the board members. Maybe, I'm making this up, but maybe she assumed, oh, the board members are more connected or they're maybe more advanced in their business or who knows, but she had a subset. And then it felt good to me as the attendee to have the privilege of an invite,
Yeah.
and so it was like all these different levers of how to influence and inspire people. And she was maximizing an opportunity when she was in town to do all these other things too. And then I guarantee, or I remember there were two people out of our six or seven that I thought were going to become clients. I didn't ask them, but just the way the conversation was going with her, I was like, I bet they, work with her
Hmm.
in whatever capacity. So, I mean, what a better way to spend morning when you're in town, anyways.
Totally.
Go to a group that's already gathering, offer value, and be willing to really be that. I like to say a big fish in a small pond, where you
Yeah.
can really stand out and they're like, oh, of course Krista's here. Of course Lindsay's talking again, because she's always talking about, podcasting as, and positioning, using that as a positioning tool kind of thing. But so I know I digressed a little, but
Yeah.
I think those are some gems of just thinking differently about what speaking is and how you can leverage it in your business.
I would never have thought of like, oh, I'm going to this event to speak or attend, and like, who else can I call to like get a squeeze in a few extra
Yeah.
speaking gigs? I'm like, that is so smart.
It's well, and it's, it really maximizes your time there. And it does feel more important to get Lindsay on the stage when she's already in town too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's
Oh,
already
that's
here.
true.
So it's like,
Urgency.
yeah, and it's versus, oh, we can get Lindsay booked next month. It's like
Mm,
she's here right now. She may not be here next month, kind of thing too.
that's so good. I feel like we get so hung up in like, how do you find like speaking gigs? And I feel like we just spiral
Oh
and
yeah.
have no idea, kind of go on some websites and stuff like that, or like I just want the invitations to come my way, but I don't know how to
Yes.
make that happen. So where, I mean, I know you've got a great report that, you can share, but like
Yeah.
how where do you start?
That is one of the biggest and probably most common questions that we get. And the cool thing is, I love how you said, where do you start? And because I believe in business, it's about us leading our business. And so many times we wait, to
Hmm.
like, I'm waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder. That's not leading our business. Our business that, and so when we're saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to groups that are already gathering my person.
Right.
And in fact, this is how we grew really quickly from 40,000 to 220,000 in 1 year. And this 10 years ago, and then still continued to leverage the same process and continued to grow was simply saying, who's gathering? I didn't have a big audience at the time. And so I said, who's gathering my ideal client? Because I knew how many people I needed to get in front of to fill or hit my income numbers. And so just asking yourself that question, you'll start to think, oh, here's a group that does, or here's a group. If it feels fuzzy, you're likely not being clear enough. Like I work with
Mhm.
women, for example. Well, where would I mean, I'm sure there's groups that are called for women, but they're probably professional women or women that do yoga or, those kind of things. So challenge yourself to get even more specific if you don't know where to find the person. Even a leader feels too broad sometimes, so maybe you
Yeah.
can say within a certain niche. And it doesn't mean or a certain industry. And so giving yourself the gift, one of leading, so going out and finding groups that are already gathering your person. And it could be people, like you and I could promote your stuff to my people and back and forth. We could do it that way. Or, a lot of times, one of my biggest and most favorite places to go is associations. There
Mm,
are so many associations
totally.
out there. And then they bribe people in a very positive, nice way. Hey, you got to come get your credits most of the time. And it's like, so they have the incentive, they have the bribe to come hear you talk anyways, and then many associations too will have, a Georgia chapter, a Philadelphia chapter, or, all multiple ones. So if you find a right fit, it's usually more than one opportunity. You
Yeah.
actually have one group that actually has 50 opportunities if they have one in each state, and then they probably have a, annual conference. So there's lots of opportunities.
There are. And there are speaker associations. Is it important to be a part of those?
That is, and I'm going to kind of talk out both sides of my mouth here. I think it's really valuable to be part of it. I have never done that
Okay.
myself just because I'm just what I've done has always worked.
Yeah.
I haven't needed to expand into that. I know some people will sing, high praises of it, and I haven't tested that myself. I've just said, I want to find my ideal clients in front of other people's audiences
Yeah.
for awesome value, and that has served. I mean, we crossed seven figures for the first time a couple of years ago, and it's like the
Awesome.
most boring model on the planet, but it's totally gets results. And so I don't I'm a very system and like if
Yeah.
this we keep going and it's kept
Love it.
working. So,
I know. Sometimes we're too like, oh, I'm bored of it. So I need to like recreate something. I need to make it fresh.
oh yeah. And the only person that gets bored is you or me.
Yeah, I know.
And it's so just if I will jokingly say, like when I do webinars or different things, it's an unsexy thing that you're doing the same talk, but the results are sexy. And
Yeah.
so if you're willing to tolerate the unsexiness of, that, and I actually think it's hugely sexy because then I don't have to worry or stress about my
Right?
topic or what do I say? I'm like, I could do it without slides, without, I could do it in my sleep. My family could probably give the talk. They've heard it so many times, but to me that's simple versus my old mindset, which was it has to be hard if it's going to be worthwhile. So I was like secretly looking ways, I had 14 different talks and all this. I'm like, that's when you really can laser in on your expertise and how that solves a problem your
Hmm.
client's facing, then you're going to naturally get your right people in the room and your topic is going to bring those right people that are ready to solve that problem.
Yeah. I love that. So I was going to ask you, how many talks should you have in your back pocket ready to go at any time? So are you saying just one?
We, okay, so I feel like I'm like totally saying five times. I'm just talking out both sides of my mouth. My recommendation, the way we grew, was one talk.
Yeah.
Did have two, or I think I had three at the time, just because it felt better to say, I've got two or three
Mhm.
different ones just because one, I was speaking to the same group. So sometimes they'd say, "Oh, we heard you last year."
Right.
And I was like, "Well, first of all, nobody remembers what I said last year." But I appreciate the fact that you looked at the schedule and I was on there. But so, in that sense, I would have a different one. Sometimes it's just a different angle talking about the
Hmm.
same thing, or you could even rename the same talk.
Different hook.
Yeah. And you could do that. So I looked at, what are the core problems my ideal client's facing? And I
Mhm.
built two or three talks around that. And one was about sales, one was about speaking to get clients, and then I had one about offers. And so it was kind of three different angles that I could go in that's still solving the problem or a problem my client was facing. And I always found the one where I talked about speaking, not converting, or speaking to fill your business, always brought in the right people and the
Mm.
right fit clients because they were, if someone wants to blog for their business growth, that's a great choice, but they're not going to come hear my talk about
Right.
speaking. And I don't want them to. No offense to them, but they're not my right fit person. I'd rather have people that, come in that say speaking's of interest to
Yeah.
me.
That's perfect. Is it a good idea, do you think, to guest on podcasts to like test your talks and kind of get a feel for what's working and what's not working?
I think that's a huge, huge opportunity because it does really allow you to. I mean, I'm a big fan of iteration and improvement, and I'm still iterating and improving talks that I've done for years.
Love it.
So, and it just builds that confidence too and visibility. I mean, and the only thing I don't like about podcasts is that you don't have control of, hey, it's on Tuesday, or it's sometimes when it's released, but there's not as much urgency around it in most cases to
Hmm.
listen. It's kind of like, oh, I can listen to this great thing next week. So I invite people to prioritize the live speaking or, virtual,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, and doing the podcasting supplementing because it builds your visibility, your credibility, your relationships. It's just a power play.
Yeah. 100%. Now let's talk about the talk.
Okay. Yes, which I know
Because
we
once you're on stage, like you need to captivate people's attention and you need to, wow them to want to work with you. So when structuring your talk, are there specific elements that we should be, creating?
Yes, there absolutely are. And I should have given this disclaimer earlier. I'm a total systems nerd. So I'm like, there's a process
Love it.
for everything. There's a system
Yes.
for everything. So if I know some people are like, oh, I don't like that, but I'm like, Excel
No,
is
you
a
have to.
happy place. Yeah. So yes, and that was part of what, led me to create Talks That Convert was I had been speaking up into, before I created that process and getting great results sometimes and getting crap results other times. And sometimes, and I would say the audience was really similar. And so I realized, okay, CEOs, successful people don't just go out and kind of wing it. They have a system, they have a way they do it. So pulling that apart, I found that there are core elements that you have because the ultimate goal is that we activate your audience, not just educate. And most coaches
Ooh,
get so stuck in the educate land. And so really having it built where yes, you do bring in your credibility, your connection. And even, one of the things I don't want to, I could like have all these sidebar topics. And I'm like, oh yeah, and this too. So I don't want to do that too much.
it
But
shows that you're
um,
passionate about what you do.
well, thank you. I like that. And making sure when we're sharing our story, it really answers that question. Why can Lindsay be trusted as an expert? I don't really care that Krista was in pharmaceutical sales unless it relates to
Hmm.
how she can help me. And I think so many times people get tangled up in I was born in, this year, or as my kids say, you were born in 1900s. And I'm like, yeah. Anyways, let's change the subject. But so we want to have that. We want to have really a validation section too. Like, hey, essentially, you're in the right place today. And so, and just like what you're doing right now, shaking your head, yes, that's what we want our audience to do. And just say, okay, I'm in the right place, or, oh, yeah, this is why I signed up to hear Lindsay. You know,
Hmm.
I remember now I'm going to pay attention. And we also want to have, obviously, the content is a hugely important part. I'm a big believer in setting the stage for, I believe one of the reasons people get frustrated or feel icky making an offer is because they don't set fair expectations up front. So I actually include seating, not seating like I'm in a seat, but seating. And I
Yes.
say that just because I've had clients that are like, okay, here's my seating like section. I'm like, no, well, yes, and
Yeah.
so just wanted to specify that. But the seating section really is where we basically let people know, hey, we've got 30 minutes together today. And I'm going to give you as much as I can. And there's no way I can give you everything because we only have 30 minutes. So I will give you a free way. I will give you a free guide. I will give you a way to continue the conversation, whatever the offer is, at the end of our conversation today. How does that sound? Again, they're shaking their head. Yes, they
Hmm.
now understand what's going to happen. So it feels
Yeah.
good. And then, teaching the content in a way that really is inspiring, that does educate, but also activates, which is a whole, process in and of itself, where it's not like, we're going to say, here are the 14 exact steps, but it's teaching it in a way and connecting with emotion. And then obviously the call to action is really, really important. And, having that, some people call it a bridge. I like to look at it as where before the call to action, we actually kind of remind them of the pain. And,
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you showed up today. It might be because you're tired of speaking on stages and not getting clients. Maybe you're frustrated that you're almost past, the six-figure mark, but you can't make it across the line. You know, things like that where it reminds people, oh yeah, I did come for a reason. Because
That's
they did.
good.
They didn't come to hear you or me and say, Lindsay just wanted to tell you my podcasting plan is perfect. They wanted to learn, they wanted to solve a problem. So kind of a combination of those and, making sure that throughout, I kind of have a couple different layers of activation that I teach that we kind of, after we put that together, we go back through and just think through even overcoming objections, how to
Yeah.
tell stories in a bigger way, so it's kind of a multi-tiered process once we get the talk together. But then you deliver it and you're like, wow, the audience absorbed it. They felt inspired. They didn't feel fire hosed and they raised their hand to take
Mm.
action.
That's a great point. A lot of the times people do feel fire hosed and they're just like a deer in the headlights because their brain is trying to absorb everything.
Yes.
And so, like, then they're not going to do anything because they're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, 100%. And that's not what we want. Because if it was just about the information, there'd be one diet book and one self-help book, and we'd all in America be happy and ideal fit, or I was going to say fitness or ideal weight. And there's more books on those topics. And America could use some improvement. I'm saying I could definitely too be healthier. Uh, but looking at it from that perspective, it's about that implementation and integration that people have working with you to actually do the thing versus, oh, I mean, we could all Google it or AI it.
Yeah.
You need that support, integrating it and the feedback. And then, with our clients, when they go out and speak, they can send a recorded version of it, or they can do it for Zoom and send it to me, and I give feedback on it
Mm.
too.
That's
Like
amazing.
that's the kind of thing that creates, in my mind, the transformation for the clients.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind when we speak is important. So it's not like, oh, I told them the three steps. Well, your clients need more than those three steps. They need you to actually bring it to life. So being careful that we're giving them enough so they can see the path, they see the
Yeah.
bridge, but they don't necessarily feel like, oh, Krista told me exactly how I can write a book in
Yeah.
90 days. I know
I'm
all
good
this.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because and we've all had that happen too,
Hmm.
or it's like, I got great feedback and I got new clients. Okay. That's a good sign that you're
Yeah.
overeducated.
And so obviously there's intention, there's strategy,
Yeah.
but there's also like the you element. Like, how do you bring, because people are attracted to you, like you as a
Oh,
person, like, how do you bring that personality out? And then there's also like your stage presence. Like, you can't just like stand
yeah.
there and speak it. Like,
Yeah.
how do you coach your clients on that? Because I feel like that's such an integral part.
Oh, it's huge. And, I really believe energy follows energy. And so if we're up leading the room from a Eeyore energy, we're gonna, we're not gonna attract ideal action taking clients from that. But it's also gonna be so boring in the audience to sit there through that. So, a quick, super quick story, just because it really helps illustrate this, is I always talk about, bringing in your future self energy. So if that's you in 3 years, that has like you think about what does that person version of me have? What's their business look like? How are they carrying themselves? What is their confidence? What does it look like, feel like that future place? And so I was hosting a 3-day event. We had 100 coaches coming in, and I'd hired 2 team members. Right before that, they were going to come in, help coach and support people in the room while I went on breaks because I needed the breaks in between the sessions. And one of them quit. The one that was going to come into town to help with the event quit the night before the event.
Ooh.
So I sat down, I did cry, I had my feelings, and then I was like, well, shit, I've still got to finish like pouring love into my slides because I look at it as pouring love, so I didn't feel bad. I was still working on it, the night before. And so I was like, I've got stuff to do, so I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. So I totally shifted into, I said, okay, what would future Krista do here? Well, she would say, okay, who can help? We don't need to think about this till Tuesday. And the other, it was like, I think it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Um, so on Tuesday, you can think about this person in the situation, but until then, you can't. Who else can help? How do we solve this problem? And I just shifted into that because it was almost like that was the only choice.
Yeah.
And so I called a coach colleague that was here locally, and she, interestingly, had a event she was supposed to facilitate that canceled. So she was available to just be support in the room. I called
Kismet.
yeah, and I called a client that was going to be here anyways, and she said, "I'm not going to even ask you why you're calling me at 7 o'clock the night before the event. What can I do to help?" And I said, "I'm so glad you asked. You're great at holding the space. Can you just, this is what I need on the break so I can take a break and whatever." And she was like, "Yep, totally do it." The feedback I got, that was our highest converting live event.
Wow.
My clients that were in the room were like, "You were like a different version of you, not a different person."
Hmm.
But I showed up as future Krista. I was
Interesting.
decisive, and just because I kind of had to out of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say survival because I wasn't going to die, but it felt like that in that moment when that person quit, and I was like, I have 100 people and I have so much to do. So leading from that energy, I mean, just because that was a palpable difference that clients even said, "Wow, Krista, you were just like you were on fire in a new way." We recognize you, but you were just
Yes. You
like,
were probably like uber focused. And
yes.
then it's like amazing. It's amazing what you can do when you like have to.
Exactly, because it was like I have to find a solution. Like there's no other way. And so leading from that energy, that was one of the things is really not that I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that stress, but to connect with, okay, what is that future version of you? What does she wear? What does she look like? What
Mm,
is one of my clients said her future self always wore this bright red lipstick. So to all our calls, she always wore bright red lipstick,
that's
which I love.
awesome.
But it's like, what do you need to do to show up as your best? And it's totally okay if you need to practice your talk 16 times in front of the mirror. Like,
Yeah.
don't make that wrong. If that makes you feel good about it, do that. Or if you want to record it and watch yourself on the recording, don't be afraid to really look at what do I need to do to really shine and be at
Yeah.
my best and feel my best in front of the room. So
Yeah.
that, and then the other piece, which isn't as fun of that, is just knowing that we have to get out and practice. That's the only way we get better. So having those speaking opportunities that are in front of wrong, or I don't want to say wrong fit, non-ideal clients is actually a great thing, especially when you're starting. Practice and podcast guesting, to your point earlier, huge opportunity to share your message, to talk, to connect, to tell the stories, and just see where you stumble and what could be more
Hmm.
clear. And I find the more clear we are with our own content and our own message, it's so much easier. It's not like
Yeah.
we're trying to remember things. We're just then talking from our heart versus
Yeah.
what's my thing I'm supposed to say? The
Yes. Absolutely. And you're speaking it from like being centered and from your knowing, from your
yes.
passion, from your knowledge, you're just like in the moment versus like reading a script kind of a situation.
Yes, and I've had like when I've hosted retreats or 3-day events, I was looking, I've got a notepad over here. I've had events where I've had it like scripted word almost, and that messed me up more than anything because I was like, I missed the sentence. Oh no,
Right.
versus just surrendering. And I had to learn, which was hard, to
Yeah.
trust myself. I'm like, the right things are going to come out. I know
Yeah.
this.
As long
And
as you have a framework, like
yeah, I got the 3 things I want to talk about, bullet points, but I don't have the 14 sentences that go with each written
Yeah,
out. It's so that self-trust was a huge hill for me to learn because I was like, but what if, and I
I
thought,
know
well,
that would be me.
yeah. Oh, and then I did it and I was like, well,
Type
that
A.
screwed it up. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have, I kind of negotiated with myself and had backup activities we could do if we ran out of things to do. I'm like, we never ran
Awesome.
out,
No,
but that was always my
agreed.
story.
And I like how we kind of came full circle a little bit in that, like, going to those smaller groups to really practice and feel your presence and connect with the audience and kind of, get your mojo down, um,
Yeah.
will really help boost that self-confidence, but then just getting better and better. So when you finally do get the bigger stages and move up, then you're like, oh, I've got this.
Yes, and even the small stages, I still love them now, and I call it small. If it's 10 people on, if I'm doing a webinar for somebody and they have 10 people, the old me would have said, "Oh, I don't want to do a webinar for just 10 people. My ego is too big for that. That's not worth my time." But when you have a talk that converts, you're going to walk away with 2 or 3 clients. And for most people, if you have an offer that's say at least 2,500 or $3,000, that's, if we said
Yeah.
3,000, that's $9,000 from a talk you've already used, you've already done, that's ready to go, and you do that twice a month, that's
Yeah.
$18,000. Like,
Good
so
math.
yeah, I'm like, that's a multiple six-figure business right there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be big stages. So that's why I'm always kind of just pushing people to say you can
Yeah.
create your own events. We teach clients how to do roundtables or small gatherings.
Oh, awesome.
Then you can also, go to people and say, hey, could I do this? You've got a group, if it's, an employee resource group within a
Yeah.
company, they have those for all different stuff. It could be a yoga studio. They have clients that, I've
Hmm.
had some of my clients do vision board workshops for them, and then have clients come
Cool.
out of that. So it's like
Mm,
looking for, there's so many opportunities all around us. We're just
absolutely.
trained to only see the 1,000-person stages that pay you, and it's like, well, we can actually make a whole lot more if we're selling
Yeah.
to get clients versus, or talking to get clients versus, a 5,000 or $10,000 speaking fee.
Yes. Agreed. I love it. This is such a great conversation.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to get to that resource
Yes,
because I
yes.
know it's helping people um, find stages, correct?
Yes, and it kind of my goal with it is to break people's brains and to just start seeing those smaller places that are right in front of them. And it's simple. It's called 21 Overlooked Stages to fill your high ticket offers. And if you go to makeyourmark.com/, and then it's 21 stages. So it's the
Stages.
numbers.
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
And it really is, and the idea is not that you do all of them because that would be craziness. I mean, you would be busy for the rest of your life, but you could choose 1 or 2 that feels like, hey, that feels like it could build momentum. Go down that path and really commit to that path for 90 days, and you'll see 1 or 2 of those has the
Mm,
capacity to totally, change the trajectory of your business.
yeah. Love
Mm.
it.
Yay.
I know
Fun.
we so many good nuggets in this. Like, people have a
Oh,
path now, I feel like, to get on smaller stages and actually make money from speaking. It doesn't have to be like the $10,000 keynote at like
oh
some
yeah.
massive conference. It's doable.
It's totally doable. And
Yeah.
you could be, I was thinking about the millionaire next door, that kind of idea that if, a lot of times our clients don't necessarily want to be the huge guru, which is, I mean, it's great if you want to be a guru. I have nothing against it.
Yeah.
But they'd rather be the person who makes an impact in smaller groups that feels better to them. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can be just as successful doing that if that feels more aligned to you too.
Yeah. I love it. Thanks for a great conversation, Krista, for sharing your wisdom with the audience. And how can people get a hold of you besides getting that awesome resource that you shared?
The best thing would be, I mean, obviously I just threw all my words together there in one word there. My website would probably be the easiest.
Yeah.
There's makeyourmark.com/strategy session is a way to set up if people are interested in saying, hey, I might see about working with you or find out about your offers. But otherwise, we have a Facebook group as well. And you'd find out about all this, through communication if you grab that free guide.
Yeah.
Well, we share all the different ways to get connected too, but the website's definitely the best. And of
Perfect.
course, you can friend request me on Facebook as
Yeah.
well.
Awesome. Thank you again. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, I hope you help so many more people get on stage and make money the easy way instead of the hard way.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I love your energy and
Oh,
just so
thank you.
excited about what you're doing and what we're doing and how it works
Yeah.
together.
Love it.
Very
All
cool.
right, folks, we will see you next week on the Leverage Your Podcast show. And go to smoothbusinesspodcasting.com if you are ready to leverage and repurpose your podcast guesting episodes to create more authority boosting content and leads and clients. And make it a great week. Bye.
Bye.